Good morning to all of you and a warm welcome to Hyderabad. Honorable Dr. Charandas Mohanty ji, Minister of State for Agriculture, Food Processing. Mr. Sanjay Busreddy ji, the Joint Secretary in the Government of India. Mr. M.B. Desai, Mr. Balram Singh Yadav, Mr. D'Souza, Mr. Sudhakar, Mr. Ram Reddy, Mr. Chakradhar Rao, and friends. It's a homecoming for me anyway, because I am part of you all these years, almost 3 decades. Whenever I come and meet you, I feel like coming home. You know, it's like coming home. So it's a very heartening thing. It's a very good thing. We are able to meet. And I find today we have come a long way from the 60s and 70s. Earlier we used to say from all over the world, all the flights were leaving for Atlanta, and within US, all the roads were leading to Atlanta. Now it has changed. For the last 5 years, I think national and international flights coming to Hyderabad, and within the country, all the roads are leading to Hyderabad. Hyderabad being, the hub and the center for many things, including poultry. I would like to present this fact, sir. This is a wonderful thing. From 5 years ago, you started, I believe, about 3,500 square meter exhibition area. Now today, as I find from your press release, something like about 10,700, and you want to add another 3,000 possibly for this year exhibition itself. This speaks that you have come a long way, and the future is bright, and it is for us to continue to do what we are doing, to sustain, to grow and contribute. That's what this industry is doing. As a matter of fact, we are proudly saying that India on the threshold of growth and progress and prosperity, along with China. Out of all the countries, there are only 2 countries now outstanding in terms of growth rates. Now we proclaim we have 8 to 9% growth, whereas all the developed countries have less than 2% or 3%. That growth rate is fine, but we are an agrarian society. Still today, even today, after 64 years of independence, our dependence on agriculture and rural sector and agrarian economy is almost like 65 to 67%. That vast majority of the people, if you take into consideration of the growth rate, the Planning Commission set about 4% growth rate for the agriculture and allied sector put together. That 4% also we are not able to achieve. Recently it's about 2.9 or 3% in the agriculture sector. When we talk about the Indian economy, 8 to 9%, the difference between 30% of the people contributing towards 70% of the wealth and 70% of the people contributing 30% of the wealth of the country, the vast majority of the people are lagging behind. That's where the Government of India and the Planning Commission has come into realize this and do something where the agricultural economy picks up and the allied industries, the growth rate picks up. That is the reason why among all the allied activities of the agriculture, poultry stands alone, and its growth rate is 10 to 12% continuously for the last couple of decades. And this growth we have to sustain. We have to see that it flourishes and creates rural employment. This is the only sector. Why I am talking about poultry, why I am in the poultry, in spite of the fact that as a design engineer for NASA and aerospace applications, having spent 10 years in USA, what I felt was my rural background, my circumstances, my area lacking employment opportunities for the people. No doubt we are progressing much faster, but that progress, that development is not able to reach to the rural masses where that is mostly to be concentrated. That is the reason why I was attracted for poultry and dairy, and we have done significant inputs into that sector in my area as a franchisee of Venkateshwara hatcheries. And today, the number of rural folk are employed in this, with 10 to 12%. As you say, right now in the country, about 6 million, more than 6 million people are employed. Which other sector, without any governmental inputs, has employed such a vast number of people? And in the next 4 years, according to the Government of India survey, about 2.4 million people will be employed in the poultry sector. I am glad that Andhra Pradesh contributes almost one third of that. That kind of employment generation, which no other sector is able to do it, and without any concerted efforts by the government or inputs or subsidies or encouragement. This on its own. Please kindly, Mantri Mahoday, please kindly make a note of this. This sector needs a preferential treatment, not because we need subsidy. The country needs rural employment. The country needs nutritional element to be taken care of. As of today, our per capita consumption effects in the country is about 52 or 54 compared to 280 in the Western countries. And the meat production and meat consumption is hardly about 3 to 4 kgs per capita consumption, as against 35 to 45 kgs in the rest of the world. You can imagine the scope that we have in front of us to achieve that kind of level. What is required for that? What are the inputs required to achieve that? What are the inputs required to sustain, to reach the protein deficit state to protein rich state of the society? When you consider all this, the Government of India needs to address this problem on 2 or 3 different sectors, angles. One is rural employment. Number 2, the protein requirements. Number 3, the vast amount of fertilizer subsidies that we are spending in the country, to the extent of last year, I believe, is about 70,000 crores. And the poultry litter, which is ignored, which is not recognized, it contributes roughly about 10% of the total fertilizer that is consumed in the country. And you can imagine the subsidy component of that in terms of Government of India's expenditure comes to 7 to 8,000 crores. Not only Government of India is sparing, not spending, but also the import value of that kind of fertilizer, you can imagine, on the foreign exchange component for the country as such. So under these conditions, one is the rural employment, second is nutrition component, third is the poultry litter, which will benefit vast majority of the farming community in the country, must be taken into consideration in formulating our strategies and plans. As far as the 12th 5-year plan is concerned, I am glad the Joint Secretary address and our Honorable Minister will also focus these items. In this connection, I would like to say a couple of things. That is, we should have a nutrition mission in the country established or constituted to achieve this. A task force comprising of the industry people and the technical people. Government of India should constitute a task force to address these problems, so that our cherished goal of rural employment and protein supplement, protein growth requirement to be met for this purpose. As a matter of fact, there are other problems connected with this kind of growth of 10 to 12%. The liberal credit policy of the government no doubt is helping, but at the same time, for this kind of massive employment structure and the consumption of meat and eggs, we need much more than what is being done today to sustain, to progress further. Towards that, I would appreciate calling for the state ministers and chief ministers and see that this sector is permanently declared as an agricultural status for the poultry industry, so that it is not for the benefit of an industry man, it is not for the benefit of an industry equipment manufacturer, it is for the benefit of the country and the society at large. And this contributes in a vast way, in a better way, in a faster way, without much inputs from anybody other than the investors in this poultry industry alone. So it is our duty, it is our objective, it is a cherished goal to see that this sector is helped, so that we can sustain the growth that has been coming up in the last 3 decades. I would appreciate the Honorable Minister calling for all the industry leaders shortly, and then we can make a representation to the Planning Commission and to the Government of India, so that these tasks must be addressed and it should be taken up immediately. The other factor we are ignoring, we are forgetting, is the feed availability, feed ingredients availability. The kind of growth that we have in the next decade, it requires lot more production of maize and soya and other ingredients. You can imagine that kind of quantity in the next decade to be produced. It's impossible to create that kind of irrigation facility or the acreage that is required. You have physical limitations in increasing the acreage for these things. The other alternative before us is the increase in the productivity of these feed ingredients, so that per acre productivity should be addressed to be higher. That is the only option we have. Towards that, the government of India and the industry people sit together, research and concentration, and the methods adopted in the developed countries must be taken as a clue or a guiding principle, so that we can achieve self-sufficiency instead of depending in the future for imports of any of these ingredients. So the task, another task is before the government and industry is to address the problem of increasing the productivity of these materials, so that the growth can be sustainable. So all these factors must be addressed. That's why I request, I appeal. Lastly, I demand on your behalf, the government of India, being a poultry industry gentleman, I demand to constitute a task force to have the strategies evolved and the methods developed, so that this industry contributes its share, whatever it has been doing earlier. For this kind of thing, I think a task force and a nutrition mission must be established to sort out all these problems, sir. And I urge upon you to take it, to the level where it is required, and we can do justice for this industry and for this industry to flourish, as a matter of fact. Lastly, I would say we have come a long way. I see the future of poultry industry in India in you, because you are the people who did it. It's not only seeing in you, but I would like to see that it happens through you and with you in a better way, because you have much more experience than anybody else. With this, I would appeal to all of you to come together to represent the government of India in Delhi. We were doing it earlier in the 80s, but of late we haven't been that active. I am sorry, but at the same time, let us do it for sustenance, for growth.